Keep the applause going for Julianne Villa! Hello! Everybody looks so cute today. I should have tried harder.
Thank you. All right, so I'm standing in my kitchen and I'm arguing with my surgeon. And I am convincing her that I know what's best for my body, and she is hitting me with the harsh facts that lead me to say, well, shit. My diagnosis was rectal cancer, and I'm going to say that word a lot, so 5 minutes of uncomfortability, here we go. So some biology, your rectum is prime real estate in your body. It's about 15 centimeters, 5 inches, science teacher long, and it's required for you to be able to poop, right? So with cancer, what they essentially do is it's like having a leaky hose. They cut out a piece, and then they get rid of that piece, and then they put the two parts back together. And so with this diagnosis, I also was going to have chemo and radiation, which were just going to like destroy all of that tissue. So the surgical solution for this is for them to take part of your colon and essentially attach it so it comes out of your body and then attach a plastic bag to it to collect your poop. And this is what we were discussing, was that this was going to happen to me and that this was actually going to help me. And so going up to this point, it had been about 3 months back up to this point. And I had been through radiation every day, which required that I had chemotherapy 24/7. So there was a port coming out of my chest. I carried my chemo in a fanny pack, and I slept with it, and I showered with it, and I had done all of those things. And then we were discussing the surgery that was going to be next. And the things that I had lost, I gave away my fertility in 24 hours in a short decision. I went into menopause. I stopped working, and I almost lost my job. There just were a huge number of things that came with going through cancer treatment. And I also questioned my mortality, right? Because you always have this question of, will I survive? So the thought that I also, in addition to everything, would not be able to poop for the better part of a year just totally made me want to lose my shit in every way that you can possibly imagine. So talking to her, I had chosen this surgeon very specifically. She was the third surgeon that I had talked to. The first two, I'm sorry, but those guys were complete assholes and were not going to be my surgeons. So she was newly minted from Mayo Clinic. She described herself as very aggressive. She bragged about her white coat that said rectal on there on the crisp white linens. And she hit me, as a scientist, she appealed to me, she hit me with numbers. And for me, numbers are my love language. And she explained to me that if I didn't have the ostomy, that it would mean that I might end up incontinent for life, that I could get an infection through which she could do nothing with surgery, where it might just, get me more than the cancer. And so I knew that she was right, and I acquiesced. The rational side of me agreed. But the emotional side of me just couldn't understand that in addition to everything else, I wouldn't be able to run and climb and bike. Those were my coping mechanisms. And what would I do about having sex with my hot 27-year-old boyfriend? That also was something that I couldn't imagine dealing with one way or the other. So in January of 2011, I did have that surgery. And waking up from it, although it was successful, I felt like I was thrust into a sci-fi movie. When I looked down, when they came to remove that dressing, sticking out of my abdomen was part of my colon, and it was red and pulsing and oozing in a way that I couldn't understand. For a month, when the nurses came to my house, I refused to change the dressing. I would shower, looking up at the shower head, refusing to look and unable to look at the rest of my body. So eventually, I got back to life. The world did not, in fact, stop spinning on its axis. Things like that didn't happen. And I learned things like I could wear pants, but not these kinds of pants because an ostomy bag sits right here on your waist. I found some stretchy pants. It's when yoga pants were coming in from Target that I could, wear to formal occasions and stuff. And then I also learned that my climbing harness would fit just both above and below my ostomy bag. And if I ate lunch after I climbed, I could still do that sport that I loved. So all of those things happened, and eventually I did have the conversation about how do you have sex with an ostomy bag. Just go ahead and Google it. Amazon will ship this awesome thing right to your house. It's just kind of it's like lingerie, only in the middle. Yeah, my ex is gonna love that. So when the takedown surgery was happening, which happened about 7 months later, one thing you don't know about surgery, if you ever have major surgery, they do not let you leave the hospital until you can poop. no matter what it's for. For me, this was just, they let me go with just passing gas. So the nurses and the surgeons and everybody was like, have you passed gas yet? Like, is the plumbing working? Like, can we hook it back up? Like, is it leaking? How's it going? So that happened, and I eventually went back home, and the things healed, and I kind of got back to life and being able to do things. But I can tell you that going through potty training at the age of 36 is not something that you want to have to do. I, in the beginning, went to the bathroom 5 to 6 times a day. I'm a teacher, so I was trapped in a classroom. I know where every single bathroom on that Chicago lakefront path is. And in a tri-state area, I can tell you which gas stations will let you use their bathroom without a key before you pay for your gas. So on Monday, I went to my oncologist. I've been going to my oncologist every 3 to 6 months for the past 8 years. And every time I go there and I am cancer-free, I'm overcome with this immense amount of gratitude. It hits me every time I see patients who are not as fortunate as me. And I know, looking out at this audience, that there is someone in here who probably has an ostomy bag, and it's for life. So I have to own this gratitude, and I have learned that the other thing that I have to do is to let go of the shame. Because while 7 years later, I can now stand in front of a room full of strangers and talk about this, in real time, I was not able to do so. I couldn't put the words together. I couldn't write them down. I couldn't get them out of my mouth. I didn't talk to anybody about it. So what I now know, though, is that by letting shit go, it makes room for everything else.